Valerius Maximus interrogatus. It's a passive. So he's been asked, interrogated also by a certain very good friend, and Macissimo, it's superlative, so it's a good friend. I'll take quid as why Sibi himself, thus so, was following or pursuing a sparsom and uncertain type of military campaign. So it could be spread out or a bit tumultuous and uncertain type of campaign. To which he inquired, he said, "Absist, stop querying this, stop asking about this. For if of this type of plan I sense, it's a future, sincero, my interior tunic," that's his inside shirt, maybe a singlet or whatever you call them in Roman times, "if it was conscience, if it was sharing knowledge of his plan, continuo, immediately I would order, Ubabo, it to be cremated, to be burnt." Okay, quorsum, of which, therefore, what erupted, what broke out from this dissimulation, this big pretense of wandering around, and what kind of end did it have? What was the outcome? Vero, you could say but, however, or maybe even truly, after his own army, he had implicated or put into all ignorance, and all of this place Calberitum in his error, which is literally means wandering about, is to error. So after his army was ignorant and the whole area didn't know why he was wandering about, suddenly, well, it's not really suddenly at the moment, but he's directed to another course. Suddenly, when he did this, he reflexed, he turned to Contrebia, and his unexpected pietem and astonished, he oppressed this city, this place. And at the moment my downloads can't be done by YouTube because they're going to take 2 months or something to verify it, because I didn't want to send them my driver's license apparently. Ergo nisi mentem suum. Therefore, unless his mind had been forced to scrutinise or to examine dolosses, which are trickeries and tricks, to the ultimate of his old age, upon these walls of Contrebia, when he was armed, he would have had to have kept sitting. So he would have had to keep sitting on these walls, armed, till he grew old. 7.4 external. Athagocles, sounds very Greek, the king of Syracuse. He was calidus, he was cunning in an audacious sort of manner. For when the greater part of his city, the Carthaginians, occupied it, he trajected his army, he tossed his army over into Africa. So he just took them over to Africa, to that continent. So that metum with metu, so that fear with fear, vim with v, or w if you want to pronounce it, force with force, he could shake things up. And this was non sine effecta, and this wasn't without the effect he wanted, so it worked well. Nam repentino, anyway, for this sudden adventure, the sudden arrival, yes, of him, the Phoenicians, the what are they called, Carthaginians, were perculso, they were struck by his sudden arrival, and libenta gladly, for their own incolumitatem, so there's a trade-off here between their own unsafety and the safety of the enemy, so they redeemed, they bought their own safety, the expense, it looks like, of their enemies. And pacti, that struck some deal that at the same time, Africa from the, what's this place in English, Syracuse, Sicily, something like that. Yeah, probably Sicily, I don't know. And Sicily from the Carthaginians, it would be liberated from their arms, basically. Okay, so that was the deal that was struck. This bit here, it's either age or at seems easier, so we'll go, but if they had persevered to watch over these walls at Syracuse, what would have happened? Because there's a question mark. Sicily being urgentor, being pressured, you might want to say, urged on by the pressure, of bad things in war, the troubles of war, malus belli, in enjoying the goodness of peace, he had left the Carthaginians secure. Now, by bringing in surrendering the things that he had suffered, while he was provoking another, rather than tuitor, seeing over his own hopes, over his own resources and protection, with a more fairer mind or calmer mind, he deserted his kingdom so that it would be, he could recover much more safely. Quo and eo here, having adverbial senses. External bit 2. What of Hannibal? Looks like he's got this way. It's Cannae. The Achis of the Roman people. So this is the battle formations of the Roman people. His question, non surely, Prisquem, before he descended to this demarcation, to the fighting at Cannae with the Roman people, with compluribus, with many types of astuteness. Copulatum means it's tied up in like lacrises, which are nooses, so he's using a lot of trickery and nooses, you might want to say, to catch them. He led the Romans to Cannae to so miserable an exitum. This was the end of the war, really, I'm guessing. So Prisquem means there was a lot of things going on before this fight leading up to it, and it was miserable for the Romans, I'm guessing, till it all ended. And number 4, before everything, he provided, he saw it to the future, that the sun and the dust, which there, by much wind, was accustomed to be excitare, to be stirred up, would be against the enemy. So he had this foresight to do that. Then, part of his copia, part of his forces, into the tempest of the battle, inside the time itself of the battle, so while the battle's going on, de industria means on purpose, he ordered part of his forces to fugare, to flee. Then, when there was a bit abrupter, broken off from the rest of the army, Legio Romana, Roman legion, followed these people for the purpose of trucidating them, of cutting them down by his men, who he had collocavered. He had placed them in ambush positions, curavid, so he'd taken care to place his men there, which would butcher the Roman legion. Post Remo. Finally, 400 horses he suborned, knights he gave them orders, who simulated, they were pretending that they were transitioning over, seeking the Roman consul. So this would be Hannibal's doing. He's got 400 knights, pretend that they were going over to the consul, by who they were ordered in the more, the custom of transfugers, of fugitives, having ablative absoluted here. They've put down their arms, and they were set aside to go to the ultimate part of the battle, the furthest out of the way part of the battle, behind the Roman soldiers. These men who, in their tunics and loricas, which is like a bit of plating that they wear, they had abditerated, they had hidden, I must have hidden these swords there, so they've pulled these swords out, and they've coquitteranted, they cut down the fighting Romans. The poplites are their hamstrings, these sort of things. So they were behind them, pulled out these swords and cut all the hamstrings of the Romans. And looks like they fell. So here's a daily dictionary. Poplites. Poplies. It must be singular. So poplites are the plural. The ham of the knee. The how. These must be like 18th century words. But anyway, that's what the hamstring is. A lot of the times you just see it as the knee. Duplicato poplite with bended knee. Okay, so back to the plot. Where were we? So this was the fortitude of the Punic fortitude, Punic bravery, is with Dolus, with tricks, with insidia, that's plotting ambushes, and deceptory, fallacious needs. This is how they were drawn up, which now is the most certain excuse of circumventing our virtue, of defeating us. Since we were more deceptor, we were more deceived than victo sumus, than beaten. That's the end.